Journey back to ancient Greece in search of wealth and glory. This is our review of Akropolis.
Akropolis is a tile placement game where players construct a Mediterranean city, but be sure not to sleep on getting those multipliers. Aside from a few quirky rules that could be changed, this is a fun puzzle game, and we'll tell you all about it after this quick how to play. Akropolis is played over a series of turns, with players taking and placing city tiles on their turn. Players may place their city tile on the first level of their city, placing the tile along at least one edge of another city tile. Players may place their city tile on a higher level as long as it covers 3 hexes and is on top of at least 2 different city tiles. Each city tile can be made of 3 different types of construction: quarries, districts, and plazas. Players will earn points at the end of the game depending on how they build their districts according to the placement conditions. The game ends when there's only 1 tile left. Then players add up their scores based on the value of their districts, multiplied by stars on matching plazas. The player with the most points wins. Before you go off booking that Mediterranean vacation, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Our channel wouldn't exist without you, so thank you again for all your likes and subscribes. This was a game we were introduced to at Origins in 2022. I feel like there were a lot of tile games in 2022, so this had some stiff competition. So the overall concept is similar to other tile placement pattern building games. You get your city tiles, which are 3 hexes, and you gotta place them on your board, and they have to be touching edges. And then you have to put the certain colored districts in different locations in order to earn points. And everyone has a handy dandy reference card, so I like that. On the back is the variant version, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But you gotta place them down. So you want all the blues touching, or you don't want any of the yellows touching, or you want the reds on the border. So you have different placements that you're trying to figure out. And again, it's similar to other tile placement games that have those win conditions. So if you've played a tile placement game, pattern building game, you know already how to play this game. I think one of the biggest changes I like about this one is that you can stack the tiles. You can build up on higher levels, and as you increase on the higher levels, you'll multiply it by a higher score. So you get 2 points instead of the 1 point for each of the things. While I did really enjoy that mechanic, it had its trade-off, right? Because in order to build up, you obviously have to cover something that's already showing. So once that's covered, then you basically lose any points, or, let's say you covered a multiplier, which, don't try not to do that. But if you did that, you're basically trying to weigh like, okay, is it better that I get this double and then cover up this? Okay. Stones are important when you're drawing tiles from the drafting site. They call it the construction site. And when you draft a tile, depending on where it is in the row, you have to place a stone, similar to other drafting games. Only in this drafting game, you don't get the stone that's placed there. You just turn it into the supply, and then you take the tile that you want, which I didn't really like that mechanic a little bit. I'll get more into that in a little bit. But the only way to get more stone is to build on top of a quarry. So the quarry are the non-colored sections. So on here, so you'd have to build on top of that, and you'd get 1 stone for building on top of it. So you do need to build up. So I guess going on Lee's point is you don't want to cover up the districts when you go up. You want to try to cover up as many quarries as possible. So on the first level, you try to place your quarries so that on your second level, you can cover them, get more stone, and continue on in that fashion. Obviously, since you're drafting, other players are going to be going after certain districts, and you have to make sure, like, either you aren't basically doing the same thing, because if you are, then the other person or the other people are probably going to win because they're going after the things you aren't going after. So kind of like fairly balance it out when you're playing, because, definitely keep an eye on what other people are doing. And then, like I said at the top, don't sleep on those multipliers. Like, try and get those as much as you can, but for what you're going for. Don't just get them just to get them. With all tile placement drafting games of this nature, if you go after the same thing like Lee was talking about, you could end up giving another opponent an advantage because they may be doing something different. That's why I feel like a 2-player game of this really works well, because even if you are going after the same thing, there's enough tiles that as you're going, you can really make it a head-to-head. But if it's 3 or 4 players, if 2 of you are going after the same thing, the 3rd player can just go after the other things and get an advantage. Whereas if you're all going after the same thing, then someone has to choose and who's going to draw the first thing and who gets lucky enough that they kind of have a breakaway. So I feel like as a 2-player game, this works best. You can play it with 3 or 4, but I feel like the 2 players, it is a good 2-player game. One unique rule about this game that I don't normally see in other games is when you use the stone in your drafting, obviously the first one doesn't cost anything, but if you want the second one, then you pay a stone, third you pay 2, etc. However, once you pick that tile, those stones are basically returned to the stock. Like, no one gets that stone if they were to pick up one of the city tiles later on. So that was kind of unique to me. That just made these even more important as far as like currency or draft order goes.
I actually think that that hurt the game because there's a reason why every other game that uses these mechanics has it where you put it on the drafting card or the drafting tile that you're taking and then you get it. Because you gotta be able to choose which one you want. If your drafting pile, the construction site is 4 or 5 tiles long and you really need that 5th one and you're gonna use all your stone or you don't have the stone, then basically because of a rule mechanic of the game, you're gonna lose it. It hinders the strategy that you can use in this game. And I hate it when games purposely limit or purposely try to restrict you to add strategy to the game. It's like the more open the game is, the more ability the player has to be able to choose what their strategy is. So I don't like it when games try to steer you in a strategy direction or try to force you to do things or don't allow you to do things when you do have a strategy. So I think that that's something that could be changed. And that's just a minor house rule. You just make it, put it on there like every other game, and then you get the stones when you take it. A simple change, and this game is a lot better.
So it's a pretty light game that you can start the night out with. It does have a bit more thinking and complexity because it is a puzzle game. So not too like you don't need to think, but also not too serious.
Is it one of those games that you always talk about where it's relaxing and it doesn't get you ready for the more complicated game? Or does it get you ready for that more complicated?
It's not too relaxing, but I mean, like being a little city planner and everything, I think it'll get me ready, but it's not too just like, okay, play 1, 2, right in the middle somewhere. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. It's not too complicated. You're building cities, you're trying to meet the conditions of those in order to score them of your different districts, and then those multipliers really add up if you really play it right. I'm probably gonna give this game a 6.
Overall, I had a lot of fun with this game, other than a few minor quirky rules that we kind of went over in our review, the stone mechanic being the biggest issue. But since it can be fixed with the house rule, I think that that's not too big of a problem for me. I do think that after a while, it'll lose replayability, so that also knocks it down a little bit. I don't really like half scores, but I don't want to give it a 6 because that's kind of low. And it's definitely not a 7 in my book, so I'm going to say 6.5, even though I don't really like 6.5 scoring. And that was our review of Akropolis.
What'd you think? Are you ready to play this game, or is it all Greek to you? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you're enjoying our content, please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Until next time, I'm Lee.
And I'm Kenny. I go party like a board gamer.